Hello, it is Jack Gill, and welcome back to the Mundo Sporto podcast. A bit of a new thing for us today. We're doing it live for the first time ever, but there's a lot to talk about. Today was, of course, the European draws, the Champions League and the Europa League. We're going to do the Champions League one first, the proper one. Sorry, Terry. You've probably forgotten what it's like to be in the Champions League. But nonetheless, we'll get into the Champions League draw. And Stephen, I'm going to come to you first of all. Man City, the first team drawn out of the pot. Borussia Dortmund, I think, is a team that a lot of people wanted to get in the quarterfinals, but you have to recognise the talent that's in that squad.
I personally didn't. I'll be honest. I've got, I guess, a relatively good reason, given the fact that City tend to get these teams that apparently we want to get, and each year they knock us out annoyingly, like Lyon, Monaco, Spurs. But Dortmund are a club that, in a shootout, when it becomes an open game, whatever, they are as dangerous as pretty much anyone in world football. And I genuinely believe that, given the fact that they've got possibly the most clinical striker in world football, and then they've got some of the brightest young talent. Of course, I have to be confident as a City fan. We are a better side than them. Fundamentally, that's not a controversial statement. They have struggled in the Bundesliga this season, but this, I wouldn't say it's an easy draw. It just isn't. They are a good side, and when you get to this level of Champions League, I know from experience, and you guys know from being football fans, it's a cliche, but there isn't really an easy game unless you get genuinely lucky. But there isn't genuinely. They're all there for a reason. They've all got quality. And Dortmund, they knocked out the perennial cup specialists in Sevilla. Haaland scoring 4 goals in both of those games. And even though I'm confident that we can beat them, I don't think it's by any means a given the fact that we've lost to teams possibly not as good as before at this level. So, it's interesting. It's fun. I can't deny it's a fun game, by the way. I mean, it's definitely an exciting game, and it's one that people will enjoy to watch, I reckon. I got a feeling it's going to be a really entertaining couple of games, but there's lots of little reasons for City fans to feel confident, at the same time feel a little bit apprehensive.
And Lewis, Stephen perfectly says there, there is no easy draw when it comes to the last 8 of the Champions League. Chelsea arguably got the easiest draw, but, before the draw, I was talking about Porto a lot. I think they're a side that you can't underestimate. Their style, the shape that frustrated Juventus is difficult to break down. It looks easy on paper, but it's still a tough test for Tuchel.
Yep, I am not taking Porto for granted by any way, shape or form. Every team that we were going to draw was going to be a hard game, but same way, Porto was the easiest of a really tough bunch, and I'm happy that we drawn them. I am not underestimating them because they knocked out Juventus, who were one of the favourites of this tournament, or definitely one of the bigger favourites than Chelsea were going into it at the start of the season. So we have to deal with the task at hand. They are going to be frustrating to break down, but we're frustrating to break down as well, too. Recently under Thomas Tuchel, we've only conceded 2 goals. So it's going to be tough defence versus tough defence. We've been able to break teams down as well. Our only thing is, can we be clinical? And that's just the biggest thing with Chelsea. Can we take our chances? If we take our chances, we're going through to the semi-finals. And I could say that with a level of confidence about it. But that's the biggest thing with Chelsea. It's if we take those chances. Because every game that goes around, there's at least 1, 2, maybe more big chances that we haven't put into the back of the net, or there's poor chance creation and we've missed a couple passes when we should have. We had players with their heads down ignoring a run. We've seen that happen plenty of times with Werner or Havertz on numerous occasions. So we just need to be better in the final third. But in terms of how frustrating they can be frustrating, but we've shown the last 2 games we can be just as frustrating to break down.
And Terry, then there's PSG Bayern, a rematch from the Champions League final last year. Bayern narrowly beating PSG in that one. Bayern and Man City, the favourites for this competition this year, but they've got a real tough test in PSG.
Yeah, you can't write PSG off. Obviously, they've got Mbappe up front, who's phenomenal, up there with Haaland at the moment. Them two are definitely taking over from Ronaldo and Messi at the moment, if you know what I mean. That's going to be a superb game again to watch. I wouldn't write off PSG. I mean, Bayern, every time that you watch them, you think that you've got half a chance of beating them, but they're such a solid team, Bayern. They've got such a great players. But I've just got a funny feeling PSG might do it this season. I think they might get one over on Bayern, and Mbappe will definitely thrive in them 2 games over the 2 legs.
Well, it's definitely going to be a good game to watch, that's for sure. And PSG will be desperate for revenge, like Liverpool against Real Madrid. I think we'll discuss this one now. I think that draw with Liverpool facing Real Madrid is a perfect chance for Liverpool to get one back for what happened in Kiev. Real Madrid, I think it's the best possible time to play them. However, they're one of the most elite clubs in Europe, and you can see that from their record in the Champions League. Zidane's record in the Champions League is outstanding, and no matter how much they've dipped in recent years, we saw City knock them out. I think in the last 16 last year, but you just can't rule Real Madrid out. And Lewis, the thing is about Liverpool and Chelsea side of the draw is both clubs are probably rubbing their hands together because they've avoided City, Bayern, and PSG.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing that's left me a little bit confident too. Like the other side of the tie is really favourable on our end because that's one of PSG, one of PSG, one of Man City, and one of Bayern Munich that could potentially be going to the final. With us, again, the job is not easy. Porto, Real Madrid, Liverpool, they're all going to be hard. And I can't lie, I'm really looking forward to a potential Chelsea-Liverpool semi-final because that's going to be one of the greatest throwbacks. One of my earliest memories following Chelsea was the 2007 Cup semi-final with Reina saving every single penalty against us in the shootout. So I do want a little bit of revenge for that as well, but I just want it for the throwback and to bring back the old European rivalry as well. But yeah, for both of us, it's reasons to be optimistic. I mean, for you guys, season hasn't really gone to plan, but if you go and take a Champions League out of it, you won't care wherever you finish in the Premier League. And same thing for us.
That's the thing. I think from a Liverpool fan perspective,
I think it's frozen.
We'll never know that perspective. I guess we'll yeah, Jack, come on, man. Like you've should we take out while Jack gets over? But
yeah.
I mean, to be honest, that's Liverpool. Like the thing is, from my perspective as a City fan, I wish we had some of that confidence in Liverpool, that they have in Europe, because we haven't got that confidence yet. We haven't really, I guess, earned the right to feel that confident in Europe yet. But I mean, I'm sat there as a City fan looking at this draw and thinking, if we get past Dortmund, it ain't going to be easy. If we get past Bayern and PSG, that's just really difficult once again. Like, then we potentially got like an English team in the final. It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's just such a potentially a huge game. Imagine an all-English final. But at that point, if it was Liverpool, I would hate it. Absolutely hate it for one, because that's just an awful scenario that no one wants as a City fan anyway. But like, how are you feeling about Chelsea's chances of getting past Liverpool, Lewis, if you did get there?
It all depends on their injuries at that point, because it depends on their back line. Like, Liverpool have been a mess this season, but when it comes to Champions League football, like, it can change. Different tournaments can bring a different sort of energy out of teams, and I've seen that come from Chelsea as well. When we won the Champions League in 2012, our league form was, I'm not going to say it was pants, but it was average. It was massively average. But when it was the Champions League, we dropped a level of heart and determination that you'd never see us do in the Premier League. So for Liverpool, I still wouldn't want to underestimate them. If they get to semi-finals against us, I feel like they'll be at a point in the season too where they'll know what they're going for. If they're going for top four, if they're out of the top four race, they're looking for higher as well. And if they're in a worse off position than we expect them to be, they're only going to go into that game with a stronger level of determination, because all they'll have to focus on is those two legs in the semi-finals. So I think it'll be a strong fight for both of us, but it depends, because we're the same with Liverpool, where we both miss chances for fun. So it's about who's the most clinical when it comes to the pair of them. Liverpool can be strong defensively, but that depends on their reinforcements by the time we face them in the second leg. It depends on if they get past Real Madrid. But it all depends on who takes their chances between the pair of them, because both of us just miss chances.
Welcome back, Jack.
Yeah,
we took over for you, man. It's our channel now. You can back off.
That's the issue with this pandemic. It's a real struggle for people in McDonald's Wi-Fi like myself. But yeah, apologies for that slight issue. But I'm back now. I think one thing I wanted to talk about with you as well, Lewis, is ironies. As a Liverpool fan, we keep pointing to that 2005 season where we weren't very good in the league that season either. We finished fifth outside the top four. We narrowly got through the group stage. It took us to the last game like this one. And then, of course, we faced Chelsea in the semi-final, got through with that ghost goal from Luis Garcia, and then the final in Istanbul. But before doing this video, I noticed that there's some slight things that mirror the last time Chelsea won the competition too. You know, when they won it in 2012, they faced a Portuguese side in the quarter-final. In the semi-final that year, they played a Spanish side, which, of course, they can do again if Real Madrid progress past Liverpool. I think Chelsea, before this draw, I would talked about Chelsea as underdogs for this competition. Do you, as a Chelsea fan, believe that you can go all the way this year?
We're really starting to get optimistic about it, but it's quiet optimism. I don't want to say too much because that's just a massive jinx. But things are falling in the right place. Like, we got the easiest of a really tough quarterfinal draw. We got the easiest group of 4 teams as well, compared to the other 4 teams that we'll be facing if we get to the final. It all just depends. We got to do our job. That's literally it. And we've done our job so far. Atletico Madrid was a very big statement. People are now going around saying Atletico Madrid were crap, but no one was saying that when we drew them. They were saying they're one of the best teams in Europe. I'd like to see the same energy with them because we beat one of the best teams in Europe home and away, and we beat them convincingly. Granted, the first leg, there's technicalities and everything. They had a bunch of players coming back from the virus. Players like João Felix weren't at his best. Kieran Trippier was still suspended because of the betting issues. But the second leg, we had players out. We had Jorginho, Mason Mount, Christensen out, and they had all of their players back. They had all their players at full strength. That João Felix was a completely different Felix to the first leg, and we beat them more convincingly. Like, that just shows the level of the squad, and it shows why I'm so glad we were able to bring Tuchel in when we did as well. Like, we did that at the right time. But yeah, I'm quietly optimistic about our hopes. We just have to keep doing our job. But Tuchel's level-headed, so I'm optimistic, but not too optimistic. I'm not going to go outright and say we're going to win the whole thing.
And Stephen, for City fans, I've said for a few months now, I honestly believe City are in the best possible position that they ever have been to win the Champions League this season. I say that because you've changed your shape. You look a lot more solid defensively. And as long as Pep doesn't overthink like he did against Lyon, do you feel confident?
I don't think I'm going to feel confident until I've got a reason to, really. But in terms of like previous success to build on it in this competition. But you're right. I mean, in terms of like, there's a general perception around City fans at the moment and in the City community. And I'm from, I guess, outside the club looking in, that this City side does feel a little bit more pragmatic, maybe not quite as free-flowing as the 17-19 campaigns where, you know, it was all about Sane and Sterling's electric wing play and Aguero was banging them in through the middle. And, you know, you had Silva and De Bruyne at the peak with Fernandinho behind. It wasn't quite as fluid as that, maybe. But it's definitely a little bit more pragmatic, I would say. I do hope and feel that Guardiola's learned his lessons after the Lyon game, and he has talked about it quite a bit, actually, where he's mentioned that we were a little bit weak down the channels and all that kind of stuff. And I do feel like we have learned the lessons from previous years so far, and I feel like the changes that we've come back to are pragmatic ones. And there's been hints in specific quotes as well from certain kind of players and even Guardiola to an extent where they've talked about how they made a lot of changes previously and not necessarily sure that's a good idea. So I'm hoping that we won't do any of that famous Pep tinkering and we will just stick to the team, for example, that was so good against Mönchengladbach. I know obviously they aren't one of the biggest teams in European football or anything like that, but the system that day was just, it was so good and it works and it's been working all season and it's been working in every competition this season. So just don't do anything, Pep. You bastard. Don't do it. Just be simple. That's what I want from him because he has that tendency to. I mean, it's one of those things with Pep. Like, he's brilliant. He's going to win you trophies and he's great at managing super clubs and all that kind of stuff. But there is like a slight downside occasionally where he can slightly overthink. But hopefully this year will be the year when he decides, I'm just going to be normal. Because sometimes normal is what you want, man. Sometimes that's what you want.
And as you say, Stephen, I thought City were very impressive against Mönchengladbach. The fluidity of, you know, that front four in that second leg was just outstanding. There's been a lot of criticism for Mönchengladbach, obviously, as a side at the moment. They're a bit of a mess. Their manager's leaving at the end of the season. They're expecting to be raided. But it was a good sign for City, wasn't it? As you say, how that shape worked.
Yeah, no, definitely. You can only beat what's in front of you. That's a cliche, but it's true for a reason. Though I do feel that City on that day, it wasn't just because Manchester Gladbach were poor. That they were the pressing, the intensity. There's little bits where I've seen like Bernardo Silva, I don't know, received the ball on the left, and literally 10 seconds later, he's over up in the right wing because Mahrez has drifted central, and they're all covering each other. And that can really, really, really kind of like the fluid false nine system that Guardiola's famous for. And it was working possibly as well as I've seen it work for City, where De Bruyne and Gundogan. I mean, everyone's acting like Gundogan's playing the striker, but he only made about 3 runs in the whole game into the box. And 2 of them, were big goal scoring chances in the end. He scored obviously one of them as well. But it was one of those things where I think it was just incredibly fluid, incredibly well rehearsed. Obviously they knew exactly what they're going to do. And they were just a better side. And it was the intensity, the pressing as well. It was the energy. It was the commitment to tracking back when it needed to be. It wasn't just because Mönchengladbach were bad. It was because City were really good. It was a combination of the 2 factors. So hopefully we can take that against Dortmund as well. Dortmund defensively are pretty poor. So as good as they are going forward, they are bad defensively. So I'm hoping that movement will be the key to unlock Dortmund as well.
And Terry, do you see all 3 English clubs getting to the Champions League semi-finals this year?
Oh, that's a good question. Unfortunately for you, Jack, I just going on the season so far. I know you ain't been too bad in the Champions League. I just think it's a tricky tie. I think you might get a draw out in Real Madrid, but then I'll be worried about them getting the away goal when they come back to Anfield and just nicking it on the away goal at your ground. So I'll see your tie as the trickiest one out of all of them. Chelsea, I think, will get through. I think they will get a draw out in Porto, and then they'll win convincingly at home against Porto. Man City is just down to themselves and what Pep does, as what Stephen said, to be honest. If he doesn't tinker back with the squad and he plays, I think the thing with Pep is sometimes is he worries too much about the other team, the opponents in the Champions League. I don't know why he does that. In the Premiership, he doesn't seem to play that way. He doesn't care who he plays in the Premiership. But when it comes to Champions League, he seems to think more about the opposition than just playing his own game. And if he plays his own game, I think City will have a good chance. It comes down to the way I look at it with City and Dortmund is whoever takes their chances. And for me, Ireland for Dortmund, when he gets a chance, he scores. And that's going to be the critical thing for me with Dortmund and City. Sorry if I pronounce his name wrong. I'm not good with pronouncing names. But I think Gundogan has been absolutely fantastic for City this season. I think losing David Silva last season, I don't think City fans really knew what to expect from Gundogan this season if he was going to, take his place of him. But I think he's been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, he's been brilliant, man. He's been absolutely quality. Can't deny that.
Yeah, that's the thing with Man City. They've got an abundance of talent, isn't it, throughout their entire squad. And you saw earlier on in the season when they lost Kevin De Bruyne for a few games when he was out injured, and Gundogan and Foden stepped up their game. So it's going to be difficult for them against Dortmund. Like you say, Terry, you're perfectly right about Haaland. You give him a chance and he'll take it. And we talk about City improving on their defence this season, but they're coming against one of the hottest strikers in Europe right now. And Haaland will see this year as his opportunity to get his name up there in shining lights and to be in the Ballon d'Or race. And putting himself in the Champions League final, semi-final, will certainly do that. You mentioned Real Madrid, Liverpool as well, and it will be a tough tie for Liverpool. There's a lot of question marks over our defence at the minute. I know in recent weeks the partnership of Phillips and Kabak has looked good and potentially better than Varane and Ramos. But at the end of the day, it is going to be a tough task. But I think anyone that was going to face Real Madrid in the quarterfinals of the Champions League are boosted by the fact that they're not the side that they have been in recent years. And Lewis, they're not the Real Madrid that we've seen over the last decade where they've won Champions League after Champions League.
Nah, but also in that same effect, I think the mentality is still going to be there from Real Madrid where they do take the Champions League massively seriously. So it's a bit of a catch-22, but yeah, they aren't the same Real Madrid from future years. The loss of Cristiano Ronaldo, Hazard coming in and then just suffering all of these injuries, which as a Chelsea fan, we knew it was coming. it's just now to see it happening, it's heartbreaking. Like, thank God it didn't happen when he was at Chelsea. Like, that's a small positive I'll take from it. But same way, it's a shame. It really is, because all of us saw him going to Real Madrid, and we wanted him to do the best there. I wanted to see him win a Ballon d'Or at Real Madrid, go and win the Champions League there, because he's that quality of a player. But now it's kind of going to tarnish his legacy, because people are just going to look at him as that guy who jumped onto the big stage and flopped. He's going to be looked at one of Real Madrid's biggest flops. But as a squad, they've gone down as a result of that. Like, I think Zidane's also had a lot of issues with a bunch of players that have gone out on loan too. And I think he's trying to figure out his best squad for the future. But this is the thing with Madrid. They kind of look like they're in a team in transition right now, which is why they're not really as stable as they used to be. But they're definitely still dangerous. They're dangerous, but they're just not the Madrid that we used to see. But same way, it's like the Madrid that we've seen in the last 15 years or something. There's only been this like 5-year period where they were like by far and away the best team in the world, no questions asked. Like, before they won La Decima, they hadn't won a Champions League final in about 10 years or something like that. I think they even went through a streak again, knocked down the last 16 4 or 5 years in a row or something like that. So it feels a bit like Real Madrid as well, because they're that big team, but Barca always seem to dominate the Spanish league a lot more, especially in recent times too. And now there's Atletico Madrid and a bunch of other clubs involved now, because the league has turned into that sort of league as well. But yeah, Madrid aren't the same giants they used to be, but they're still strong and they're still dangerous. I definitely wouldn't underestimate them.
I think the worry as a Liverpool fan, the worry certainly for me is firstly Benzema. I think he is very underrated as a player. We saw him, he was their best player against Atalanta as well. I think also that midfield for Real Madrid, if Modric and Toni Kroos turn up, anything could happen. And also, how strong of a partnership Varane and Ramos is. So, as I say, it's not going to be easy. It is going to be a difficult task, but it would be nice to see a Liverpool-Chelsea semi-final, like you said, Lewis, for nostalgia reasons. And yeah, we're talking about the semi-final. Stephen, you've got to get past Dortmund first, but PSG or Bayern? Who would you rather play, first of all?
Who gives a fuck, man, at that point? I like that. Yeah. I probably would say that to PSG. I mean, I think that's probably a fair assessment. Bayern showed last season they're probably the best team in Europe. So you just have to not choose the one who won the competition last year and who still have an incredible side. And obviously, I guess there's an element as well, just avoiding Leroy Sané. It shouldn't mean too much, but that kind of stuff is the kind of thing you pay attention to as a fan. I do feel like we could probably get at PSG. They would definitely score against us. They will 100% score against us, of course, because they're too good not to. But I mean, at that point, you're talking one's maybe a 9.5 out of 10, and one's a 9.3 or something, 9.2. They're two high quality teams. You know what I mean? Like they both got so much quality. I think Bayern are probably more balanced as a side, and I think that's probably a relatively fair assessment. But then in terms of sheer star quality, maybe there's an argument to suggest that maybe the two best players in that game would probably be on PSG side. That's not necessarily clear cut, but there's definitely a strong argument for that. So I would probably say I'd prefer PSG, but at that point, it's just a look at the draw, really. It's just whoever you get, you're going to probably beat one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the competition. So after that, just get past Dortmund. I know it sounds really obvious, but I want to get past Dortmund and then kind of worry about it later. Weirdly, though, it's like, I don't know why. I'd be less nervous about that game than I would be the Dortmund game. It doesn't make sense. I know it doesn't, but it's just, I guess, like, for example, last season I wasn't nervous against Real Madrid, and Real Madrid, obviously, I know they weren't particularly on fire last season, but they're still Real Madrid, and I was less nervous about that than I was for Lyon, which, and I guess that proved right, because City have a tendency to take their eye off the ball in these kind of games, the smaller teams. And so if we get past Dortmund and we play well, and we've seen that the kind of team that knock us out usually haven't knocked us out, we get to the semi-finals, it'll be only the second time we've ever been to the semi-finals. So it'll be a big thing for us. And at that point there, I will feel confident, more confident than Dortmund. Obviously, it depends, once we get to that point, if we get to that point, who's there? Maybe someone will be injured, maybe it depends what our form is. We might have already won the league by that point. We could have won the Carabao Cup. So all of a sudden, we could have 2 trophies in the bag already. And then by that point, you're flying confidence-wise, aren't you? So we just have to... I don't know. Could we win the Carabao Cup by then? I don't even know. When's the semi-final dates? I actually don't know that. When are the dates?
April.
Yeah.
End of April, yeah.
I just can't remember.
Don't say that you might have the Carabao Cup. Please say that you will.
Well, that's the thing is about Mourinho. Like, Mourinho's a bastard in a final, isn't he? As much as he's I don't really rate him anymore. I genuinely think in a final, Mourinho got a Mourinho every now and then. That's a clash that I definitely won't take for granted. But it is our competition, and that's not even an arrogant thing to say. We literally win it every year. So if we don't win the Carabao Cup, I'll be devastated because I want it. I want to win it while it's named the Carabao Cup forever. I was really hoping they weren't going to extend
literally all of us in the Carabao Cup final.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's true. Yeah, I was hoping because they weren't going to renegotiate. They were going to renegotiate the branding, and we would have been the only winners of the Carabao Cup ever. And I really wanted it to be that, but now they've extended it for a couple of years. So I was like, oh, fuck's sake! I wanted to be the perennial Carabao Cup holders, but either way, yeah, man, we could have won a couple of trophies.
They may as well call it. They may as well call it the Manchester City Cup, the way it's been under Pep Guardiola. But
I love it, by the way. Everyone disrespects the Carabao Cup, but I fucking love it. I this is controversial opinion, but I prefer it to the FA Cup, mainly because I feel like that competition's... Yeah, I love something about winning a trophy at the end of February or the start of March or whatever. Something about it mid-season is really good fun. And like people don't take it seriously in the way that the FA Cup does, but even the earlier rounds, you're getting the academy players playing. It's kind of fun, you know. You get Wembley early on in the season. It's something about it. It's just, and I love the fact that we're one of the only teams that takes it seriously as well. I know because we've got the big squad and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know. I just got a real affinity towards the Carabao Cup, so I want to win it again. So fuck you, Jose.
Maybe
hopefully we'll.
Got for the Premiership.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there we go. Give us 5 in a row. We get a gold Carabao Cup. That's what I want, man. A big shiny gold one, platinum one or something.
I do want to talk about Spurs and them crashing out of the Europa League in a minute when we move on to the Europa League. But finally, to end the Champions League debate and the draw debate that we've been chatting about, Terry, I just want to hear your opinion as a neutral. Who are you backing to win the Champions League this season?
Like I said earlier on, I've just got a funny feeling, and I don't know why, because a lot of people are going to back Bayern over PSG. I just think they've got a great thought going forward, and I think they're going to give Bayern a game. And if they can get past that, obviously you still got Dortmund and Man City, you know, a few good teams in there. But I think if they can get past Bayern, I'm gonna put my money on PSG. I just think they've just got a sneaky feeling that it's got their name on it this year.
And Lewis, if Chelsea aren't to win it, who are you backing?
Who am I backing in terms of preference or just in general? I think could win it.
Yeah, who do you think will win it?
If it's not Chelsea, I'd see Bayern because for me it was just don't draw Bayern. Anybody else we got in the competition, I think we'd stand the fighting chance against. Bayern, I do think we stand the fighting chance compared to the way we fell out against them last season, but they're still Bayern Munich and they're still the complete finished article in every sense of the word. I think it would be way too much for us to handle. But same way, whoever beats Bayern Munich, like there's no reason to say they can't do it because they would have bettered Bayern Munich over 2 separate legs. So for me, whoever comes out of that Bayern PSG game definitely has to be feeling themselves as heavy favourites going into that. But it's one or the two. If not Chelsea, I think it's one or the two. But to see an English team win it regardless, I think would be great. Also because there's no serious rivals in there either, so I wouldn't feel any tribalism about it.
And Stephen, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you think it'll be the winner of that PSG Bayern game, or do you fancy City?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's that simple, really. Like, I'm not saying Lewis says it's that simple, but I guess, I mean, whoever gets to the final on the other side of the draw is probably going to be one of, you know, Real Madrid perennial winners, Liverpool perennial overachievers in the competition as well. You know, even regardless, even when you were like, you know, struggling a little bit, Chelsea have won it when they were struggling a bit as well at some point. So it's all free with a good European heritage there. So, like this, any of those teams will feel confident if they get into the final, rightfully so. And you're looking at, I mean, if City get to the final, people would probably label them as favourites, but that wouldn't even be warranted given that we, you know, don't have a history in the Champions League final or anything like that. But I mean, anyone who gets through City's side of the draw probably should feel confident, broadly speaking, because it means if you're buying, it means you've got past PSG Man City or Dortmund, and vice versa. If you're PSG, you got past Dortmund, City or Bayern, and likewise for City and the other teams. It means you've gone through some very hard games. But the same could be said for Liverpool if you get past Chelsea and Madrid, and vice for it all switches round, and Porto knocked Juventus out. So it's like this is the first time I looked at the draw when I was looking at all the teams before, and I was like, I don't really fancy anyone here. Like I'm looking at all the teams, they all had a reason to avoid them, and usually there's a team or two, and I'm like, for example, when we got Spurs, famous last words, I was like, I'm pretty confident about this. When we got Leo, pretty confident about this. So I'm not sure if I've just been burned too many times or whatever. But I do feel like it's a relatively balanced bunch of teams. You've all got their own story or reason to go far in this competition. And City's side of the draw is probably on paper harder because it's got two last year's finals in it, and probably many people would see City as one of the favourites. And then, you've got I guess the lesser team on this side of the draw, Dortmund. I'm not sure if people agree, but I would probably argue they're seen as better than Porto, maybe. So I'm not sure if that's a fully fair conclusion, but I would say overall that the overall quality of the sides on the City side is probably seen as a little bit higher. And then, any of those teams would feel like favourites. But once again, you get past all them, you've got Liverpool, Chelsea, or Madrid, or even Porto. It's difficult, man. It's difficult.
Absolutely. And we'll park the Champions League chat there, but keep your comments and questions coming in. And me,
you're going to say Liverpool, aren't you, man? You're confident, I can tell. See it in your face.
There's just a feeling, an inner feeling. I have the feeling that it may be the year for Liverpool. I think if we put all our eggs in the Champions League basket, I think Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool have proved that this is a competition that suits us. And you can just never rule us out in Europe. The fact the Champions League final is in Istanbul as well, it's perfect. And to me, it smells an awful lot like 2005. But I've known that being a Liverpool fan this season, you can't be confident because no matter whether there's a high at one point, there's a bit of a car crash around the corner. And it has been a very stop-start season for us. And if we don't win it, I honestly think an English club will win it. I've said that Chelsea are the underdogs, in my opinion. I think they look so strong in the Tuchel defensively, and I think that's important in the Champions League. And I think City, as I said at the start of this show, is one of the best. They're in the best position they ever have been to win this competition. Before they lost to Manchester United. They were in such wonderful form. They were in the best form anyone in Europe was in. And the only team that would probably stop them in their tracks during that period were Manchester United, and they did it. With that rivalry thing and their record against Guardiola's City in the league. But I do fancy Manchester City this year if Liverpool aren't to win it. But the fact they've got Bayern or PSG to beat in the semi-final is going to be a very tough task for them. And as you say, you can't bet against Dortmund in the last 8 against City with how they've been in the last few years in the last 8 of this competition, and they've really struggled to get through them. And as you say, you've got Sancho, Haaland, so many good players at Dortmund, and a good young fresh squad too. So you can't really rule anyone out there. That's my point, I suppose. But to move on, we'll move to the Europa League now. Before we go into the draw, I want to talk about Spurs and last night, of course, Rangers too, a tiny bit. But remember to keep your comments and questions coming in. We'll try and answer a couple of them at the end, so keep them coming in. But yes, Tottenham crashed out last night. So did Rangers. Terry, from an Arsenal perspective, it's a bit of a shame that Gerrard's Rangers crashed out last night. There's loads of controversy in that game. Obviously, Rangers believe that one of their players was racially abused during that fixture, and we'll see what happened there. One of the Slavia Prague players, I believe, was beaten up after the game or something like that, which is probably deserved if he is a racist. But we'll part that for now. Terry, it would have been nice to see Gerrard's Rangers, in that last 8 of the draw facing Arsenal.
It would have been cracking. It would have been a cracking tie because we would have drawn them. So it would have been Arsenal Rangers if obviously they got through. Look, at the end of the day, I think when you look at it on a whole, Rangers have had a fantastic season. I mean, Steven Gerrard going there, obviously one of your own, Jack. And I would imagine one day you want him back at your club, and rightly so. But he's done phenomenal at Rangers. We all know that Scottish football is, a different league, if you know what I mean, and it'd be a different circumstances if they was in a Premiership. But I mean, that second leg game, obviously, it's got a load of controversy around it. And a few heads have probably been lost when them comments were thrown out. And it's a shame. It's a shame. But on the whole, I think Rangers have done fantastic this season, and Steven Gerrard and the team should be proud of themselves.
And Terry, on Spurs now, I wanted to come to you first on this. Spurs did a Spurs.
Spursy all day long. Listen, I've said it when, I mean, I could not believe it when half of some of our fans wanted Mourinho at Arsenal. I couldn't think of a worse manager to come to our club, to be honest. I think the way he plays, the tactics he plays, he just gets it all wrong. And listen, I think it's a match made in heaven. I really do. And the longer I want the washed up Maureen to stay at Tottenham for a very long time, because I don't think they'll win anything. I really do think that Stevens Man City, that is their cup, and they will smash Tottenham in the final. I really hope they do anyway. Otherwise, it will come back and bite me on the bum. But look, I mean, if you take, I mean, I'm going to talk serious here. If you take Harry Kane and Son out of that team, I don't think they've got a good team, Tottenham, to be honest. I really don't think, Ndombele is not a bad player, but if you take away them two players, I mean, Bale, I think for me, as he's a professional golfer now. You know what I mean? He's like a 2 handicap. He's fantastic at golf. That's all he done at Real Madrid after his first season, which was great there. He's got his golf handicap right down, and he could be a professional golfer. I mean, they was getting carried. We had a couple of good characters, Tottenham fans, on for the review of the North London derby, and they was trying to give it, saying that Gareth Bale is back because obviously he's got a couple of goals against some part-timers in this competition anyway, and they thought he was, the next kin again. Harry Kane didn't do anything in the North London derby. He didn't really do anything last night. Unfortunately for Son, he got injured, but he still didn't do anything in the North London derby. And I just think, I think personally that they got rid of Pochettino too quick, in my opinion. And as soon as I've got quite a few Tottenham friends, and they absolutely hated it when they appointed Mourinho, and they're even saying they want to lose the final to get him sacked.
Terry very clearly, critical of Spurs there and critical of Mourinho, Stephen. Do you think it is an issue with Mourinho, or do you think, it's the fact he's not been backed by Levy, really? Terry speaks about Son and Kane there, and they've been terrific this season. I think Mourinho has adjusted at times when he's faced criticism. There was that period where Kane was out injured, and he went to his usual really defensive style, dropped a few points and got criticised heavily by Spurs fans, the media. He switched it up. But do you think he's in danger of a sacking? Do you think it's Mourinho's fault, or do you think they're really missing a couple of centre-halves and that they should have gone for some in January?
I've got a very simple view on Mourinho, and whatever's going to happen to his team, I think it'll be the same wherever he goes now, because I think it's just down to him as a person. And I feel like there's a reason, and it's just simple kind of human psychology. What made Mourinho so special is that he was special. People believed he was, he was unique, and people followed him like, he was like some kind of messiah, and he'd earned that right. He did incredible things, and he had this cocksure attitude. He was young, handsome, charming. Everyone bloody loved him. And he was very much us against the world of all his teams. And all the players would go to war for him. And to be honest, that works. That works when you are perfect. And as soon as that slips, and as soon as you have a season, and Lewis will know all about this, have a season where everything falls apart, at a club somewhere, and you become tetchy, and all of a sudden, that aura, the simple for me is that I feel like people don't look at him the same way anymore. As soon as you lose that look from the players eye to eye, and they just see you as another manager, and they don't see you as invincible, and especially given that his brilliance was built around being invincible, built around that intense charisma, and now people look at him and just go, oh, he's great, but players are bigger than him these days. They don't look up to him with the same respect, not because he isn't brilliant, just because he has failed. And unfortunately, because he created this impression of infallibility, as if I'm perfect. As soon as he makes mistakes and then starts lashing out at the world, well, people are going to go, don't fucking blame us. You know, like, I'm sorry, it's not like he's been so defensive of his own personality to the point where he's got no humility whatsoever. And I feel like he's genuinely boxed himself into a corner by being arrogant, which worked for him at one point. But as soon as there was cracks in it, and as soon as people realized when you strip away this persona that he created, he's just human like the rest of us and still makes mistakes. And he had no grace to admit that. That's when he fucks up. And I feel like Mourinho's problem now is that he's no longer special and he can't deal with it. And as a result, he tries the same things and he will fall out with players. And we've seen it, we've seen it everywhere he's gone recently. And I don't think he's going to have the ego personally to sit back and learn this. And I feel that's exactly what goes wrong because he's a good coach. But I don't think he has the actual personal awareness to realize that what used to work in terms of methods for him doesn't work anymore, and players don't react to it. And players will only fight for you if they care for you and if they're fully behind you. And Mourinho has become increasingly very talented. I'm not getting him wrong, but he's become increasingly a bitter man, and that's something I don't think it's unfair either. I think it's a relatively accurate picture that I'm painting of the man, who used to be invincible, but now it all imploded. And I think these days he's a bit of a shell of the person he used to be. And players, his tactics obviously have been moved on from. And I still think he could have some success, by the way, if you got everyone up to it. Because the likes of, Dean Smith's tactics aren't exactly revolutionary, but they did really well for Villa at one point. And if you can get, Sean Dyche's Burnley giving so many teams a hard time, and Mourinho's a better coach than both of them by a long way. The players are making, I guess, is that it's still possible for him to succeed, but I don't think he has the players with him anymore. And as soon as you lose the players, you just lost it. And I think the same problem is happening every single time at Spurs. Not Spurs, under Mourinho at the moment these days. I feel like he just needs to take an awful long way away and go somewhere. It might even be a drop down, but go somewhere where the players literally look up to him the way that players used to look up to him. Like, God, this guy's good. Like, I respect him. And I feel like he's lost a lot of respect, even though they don't doubt him. That's my opinion on Mourinho. And I think it's entirely his fault because I feel like you can turn around and talk about not being backed. I'm sorry, they're not. It's not that bad for him, is it? They've got two genuinely world-class forwards in Son and Harry Kane, and they've got some good quality players across the pitch, really. And I don't think it's unreasonable to say just because they haven't been back, they shouldn't be getting beat 3-0 to knocked out the Europa League. And constantly, it's the same things constantly with Mourinho. Like, quality manager at one point, but I do feel like he's very much. It looks like you're watching, his parents trying to get a grip of social media, then getting frustrated with it, and he can't quite keep up with modern times. And that's what I feel with Mourinho. And like, he needs to really, really. He says he's humble and he's learned, but he doesn't. Before you know it, he's moaning in the press a couple of weeks later. Like, he never learns, and fair enough, it's worked for him, but. They say the definition of insanity is repeating the same things over and over again and expecting things to change. And that's what I feel looking at Mourinho. Like, they're saying things constantly, but it never changes. And I feel like it's entirely on him as a person. And maybe that's oversimplification, but usually at the very, very core of most problems is very obviously a simple explanation. And I do feel like Mourinho's problems are himself, unfortunately.
100%.
Jason Cundy says it quite all the time. And what he says about Mourinho is that he's not the special one. He's the once special. He was once special.
Yeah.
And the thing is as well, by the way, sorry to interrupt, Jack, but what I'm saying, the point I guess I'm making is that you could turn around and say he's not been backed, but he literally won a Champions League with Porto. So the point I'm making there is that he's proven himself, his very existence is proof that he can overachieve with a team that isn't one of the best teams in the world. So, I understand that he had a lot of success, at Chelsea and all that kind of stuff. But I guess the point is, like, he knows for a fact it's possible to punch above your weight, with a team. And obviously, of course, to win the leagues, you'll have to invest. But some of the mistakes that they make and some of the patterns that you see constantly, it doesn't wash for me personally.
And don't forget, they apparently won the league back in November.
Yeah,
they was running away with it. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I think it does completely depend on what happens in the Carabao Cup for Spurs. And I'm going to open something up to all of you now, and that's the future of Harry Kane. We've probably all watched the Spurs documentary. We know that he was disappointed to see Mauricio Pochettino depart. He was sort of won over by Jose Mourinho in a chat with him. I think he probably realised that, Mourinho over the years has been a serial winner, and he seems a born trophy winner, as Stephen says earlier, which is why you can't rule them out of that Carabao Cup final. But if it comes to the summer and Spurs still haven't won anything, they're in the position they're in where they finish outside the Champions League places, which it looks like they're going to. They've been knocked out in the last 16 of the Europa League. They don't win a trophy. Harry Kane is in the peak years of his career now, and there must be a point where he sits down, looks and goes, look, I'm a player where I'm good enough to be winning trophies and should be winning trophies. And he may look to move elsewhere to be doing that.
That's fair as well. That's fair. I mean, like, Kane's phenomenal. He's brilliant. I don't think it's entirely fair to turn around and say, "Oh, his career." Not anyone said it here, but people have implied it that his career would have been a failure if he doesn't, win loads of trophies. But I think it's fair to say that your overall legacy is viewed through the prism of trophies, isn't it? I mean, people look at silverware, and it's the reason. It's the reason, like, I personally think that, even if he wins Golden Boot 6-7 years in a row, people won't look back in 20, 30 years and go, that Kane was miles better than Aguero. They'll go, Aguero had the most famous moment in Premier League history, and they will do. And it's not because I'm saying not because Aguero is definitely better or anything like that. They're both top quality strikers, but Aguero will be on the highlights reel for the Premier League of all time because he's been winning trophies, and that stuff does matter in terms of, and that matters to players. It does matter to players. It would matter to any of us. If we were footballers, we want to show our grandkids and we want to show people, look at that, they're still playing my highlight reel 30 years later. And Kane, unfortunately, you've got a short career, man, and the only thing you play football for is to win things anyway. You do, and they can turn around and say it's not about winning, but it is. Everyone plays football, wants to win things and go as far as they possibly can. And I don't think Kane would be able to hand on heart go, have I gone as far as I possibly can and achieved as much as I possibly could? He's not. He's not even close to. And that's not necessarily his fault. And I do admire, sticking with your club and all that kind of thing. And obviously, there are exceptions to these rules. Like, no one would begrudge Alan Shearer when he went to Newcastle, instead of United, and he could have won loads of trophies there. But, at the same time, man, like, if he wants to win things, and I would guess, it's not a complicated guess, footballers usually want to win things, then Spurs ain't the place for him. And that's not an anti-Spurs thing. It's just a realistic thing. And it'd be a shame. I mean, the only thing is, who's going to pay for him? Who's going to pay for him? It could have been City maybe, but once again, like, there's the new exciting kid on the block, isn't there? In Haaland, so...
Yeah, it's a weird situation. And Lewis, what do you make of the Spurs, the things surrounding Spurs? I saw after the game as well, Joe Hart's Instagram post, which is just baffling. Job done when they've crashed out of Europe. Obviously, we've all spoken about Jose Mourinho. You're probably in the best possible position to talk about him with his past at Chelsea.
Yeah, like, I can't lie, even with Jose Mourinho and everything, this is really surprising from Tottenham, but I always thought it was like the biggest clash, like a serial winner against serial bottlers. It was like, which one's really gonna match out between the others? And I can't believe right now it's actually the bottle jobs that are actually coming out in this. And low-key, I think it's Jose isn't that confident in that Spurs team, I think, and it's clear to see in the way that he plays, because Jose isn't all negative football. I think he gets too worried too quickly and is very quick to switch on the defensive brand of football. But when he has a full squad that he trusts from top to bottom, he can play expansive football. Like, I used the first half of the 14-15 season with us as an example. We played amazing football that season. Then we got battered 5-3 by Spurs at White Hart Lane. Jose pulled the entire brakes on everything, and we just played defensive, pragmatic football for the rest of that campaign to just grind out the Premier League title. With Tottenham, I think with him, he still isn't that confident in that defence. I think with Jose, he always thinks defence wins you titles first. And Spurs' defence is full of howlers from right back to left back, centre backs everywhere, filled with individual mistakes. So I can see why he doesn't play expansive football. I don't agree with it, but I know Jose Mourinho's mindset. He's not going to play expansive football until he has a team that he trusts. So I see that in this Tottenham team as well. But same way, some of the results are just, it's embarrassing. Like 3-0 to Zagreb. Like 3-0 to Zagreb in the Europa League. That's ridiculous for someone. And I thought, I low-key had Spurs down as favourites for the Europa League. And it was solely because of Jose Mourinho. Because the guy's a serial winner. I'll say in a league campaign...
He used to be a serial winner, maybe. That's what I would argue.
This is still the Chelsea Mourinho in me coming out.
Yeah, of course.
I'm a bit biased in it. But
yeah, of course.
I expected more from Mourinho when it came to a cup run. like when it came to a league campaign, cool, it's going to be a slower process. I never thought they were going to be serious title contenders. Like, it was big enough that they were around there for so long, but I never thought they were going to be serious. I thought they'd take a cup run serious, though. Like, they got the cup final against City now, and yeah, anything can happen in 90 minutes, but even if they win it now, it's like, you lot sacrificed this free-flowing football that you had under Pochettino, that you lauded and you said was amazing, and you looked down at Chelsea and you said, oh, thank God we don't play football like you lot, even though you won the league. 16-17, they played brilliant football, and we grinded it out to the title on 1-0 wins, and they were all salty about it. And now you've sacrificed that to go backwards and play pragmatic football with technical football players who can't play that brand of football, all for what? The Carabao Cup?
That's the thing for me. It's like what play to your strengths. You know what I mean? Like Spurs' strengths are quite clearly it's quite clearly their attacking talent. You know, Undon Bailey can burst forward. They got Dele Alli, they got Harry Kane, they got Gareth Bale, they got Son. Like there's two of those players I would literally take in Man City's team. I would have Son and Harry Kane in a heartbeat. I think the quality, and Undon Bailey as well is a brilliant player. Like just play to your strengths. I mean, like if you haven't got great defenders, don't sit back simply because that actually then invites pressure. Like you want to keep the ball away from those defenders, do as little defending as possible. And if all your defenders are making mistakes, you're giving them a chance to make mistakes. You know, don't do that. And I've always felt like it doesn't make sense. It seems counterintuitive to me. I'm not going to try to teach Mourinho to suck eggs because he knows a damn sight more about football than I do. But sometimes looking on the outside in, it just feels really obvious. You're like, why not just build it? Why not just go for a shootout? Like your Spurs, you got Harry Kane, possibly the best finisher in the Premier League. Just go at teams. And I know it's not as simple as that, but you've got even your backup players like Lucas Moura and Bergwijn. They're pretty tricky wingers, you know. They've still got a load of ability. Like, why not just be a little bit more assertive? And like, if you have to win some games 4-3, it's better than a miserable 1-0 loss or whatever, which they're currently getting. Because play to your strengths, man. Like, it just seems an obvious thing for me. Like if you've got world-class forwards, how about your game is built around those world-class forwards actually trying to be useful as opposed to everyone protect the crap defenders? It doesn't make sense to me. Never has done.
Yeah, so this is Jose coming out, though. This is why I understand his mentality because I understand who we're dealing with.
I get it.
But you can't agree with it, though, either.
Yeah. Time's against us, lads. So I'm going to go quickly into the Europa League draw. I'm just going to recap it first. So Granada got Manchester United. So probably the easiest draw yet again for Manchester United. Ajax Roma, which is a really good clash, a really good tie, I think. Then you've got Arsenal versus Slavia Prague, which I'll come to you to talk about in depth in a moment, Terry. You know, Arsenal probably like themselves in that draw, but Slavia Prague knocked out Leicester, knocked out Rangers. They're a side not to underestimate. We don't know what's going to happen with them after last night, of course, but we'll see. And then Villarreal against Zagreb, who knocked out Tottenham, of course. Terry, I'm going to come to you first. Firstly, your thoughts on Arsenal's draw, and also the fact that if you do advance past Slavia Prague, which I think are a side not to underestimate and not think that it's going to be an easy job, but you'll face Unai Emery in the semi-final.
Yeah, no, it's a definite possibility. I mean, obviously, it's not a bad draw for Arsenal. I don't think it's the hardest draw out of the lot. Yes, they beat Leicester and they beat Rangers, but I think we're slowly coming and getting a grips with ourselves at the moment, Arsenal. Things seem to be clicking. I know the game last night was, we already knew we won it. It was like a training session. Apart from, they had a great chance in the first half, and Leno saved it with his knee, and then obviously they scored a goal. Apart from that, really, they didn't really do anything else apart from have a bit of the possession. So it was a none and void game really last night for an Arsenal point of view, from my point of view anyway. Yes, we shouldn't have lost at home. I know that, you know what I mean? But my main concern was not getting any injuries, because we've still got a good fight going on for the rest of the season to get as high up as we possibly can. We've got a big game coming up Sunday against West Ham, so I think we had an eye on that. But we got through. We done what we needed to do away from home, scoring 3 away goals. So that got us through. And then obviously, if we can get past that, we will face our old manager, who I didn't like, and glad we got rid of. We should have got rid of him after we got embarrassed by Lewis's team in the Europa League final, which we all thought we was going to win, because obviously we had the right manager who won it 3 times on a trot with Valencia. Was it Valencia? Not Valencia. I can't think who it was. Who he was
Valencia,
with.
Napoli.
Yeah,
Was it your run to the final?
Yeah, he won it 3 years on a trot, didn't he?
Oh yeah, Sevilla. That's it. Sevilla.
Yeah, Sevilla. Sorry, that's Sevilla. That's the one. But yeah, I mean, we got totally embarrassed by Lewis's team in that final. They done really well that game, and I wanted him gone from that game, and yet we kept him for 6 months, and we were slowly going backwards. And you know, I think now, you know, we're slowly getting our team back together. I'm fully behind Arteta. I wanted him when after that final. I think we got rid of a load of players in January, which I didn't think we would do until the end of this season. So doing that 6 months early was absolutely fantastic. We still got a few players to get rid of in my eyes. Bellerin, Shaka. We don't know what's going to happen with Willock and Tekie and Maitland-Niles. And we need to get, you know, another right back, another left back, a great defensive midfielder, and maybe a striker, and then we can push on. But if we can get past them two, then who knows? It could be an Arsenal-Man United final.
Yeah, and it's a good point you mentioned there, and that's the conversation we're going to end this on. I mean, both draws have set up a potential all-English final in both competitions, which doesn't come around too often. But you know, we saw it a couple of seasons ago when Chelsea faced Arsenal in the Europa League final, and Liverpool faced Spurs in the Champions League final. And Stephen, we could see it again this year.
We could do. It'd be interesting, wouldn't it? I'm still cynical. I don't think it'll happen, but we'll see. We'll see.
Forza England, Lewis?
Depends on the teams. Like I can't I'd expect the same energy the other way around too. So it's not just biased on my side, but it depends. I feel like if it was Man City, maybe. Like I'll be real. Like I don't really see Chelsea beef Man City like that. Like I remember we lost 6-0 at their ground, so I didn't even care too much coming out of it, except for the actual defeat and everything. But everyone else, like nah, because with Chelsea we don't have like a specific rivalry. We just have a bunch of different rivalries, so there'd always be something tugging at my heartstrings. But maybe it's good for the coefficient. Like I can look at it from that perspective. Other than that, like maybe.
For me, fuck that shit. None of that. I want if Liverpool gets a final or Chelsea gets a final, or I want them all to get battered. I don't.
Someone else on the tribal bandwagon. Love that.
Yeah. I can't do it at that point. I don't want. It doesn't even make sense. No, just no. I don't want to see it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you all. For you, Terry, finally, Arsenal. Can you see Europa League success this season?
It's an hard question because look at the moment, if the way that we're playing, like we did against Tottenham, North London derby, and we've done it a couple of weeks ago against Leicester, we've done it against Chelsea just after since Christmas. We've not played that badly. We've turned a corner. If we can keep our players fit, and I think our biggest downfall is ourselves, to be honest, giving away silly goals. We've done that on numerous occasions this season. If we can keep the ball and don't shoot ourselves in the foot, then there's no reason why we can't go to the final whatsoever. I've got a sneaky feeling that we can do it. I've got a sneaky feeling that we can get in at least to the final. If we can get this home leg tie done in the next round, then obviously we face Villarreal. Obviously, that's going to be a really hard game because of, Arsenal are going to want to do it against their old boss and show him how to do it properly. And then it looks like it's going to be, Man United. I mean, they are favourites. Don't get me wrong at the moment. And but yeah, I think we've got a good chance of going all the way. Let's see what can happen, Jack.
Brilliant. And we'll soon see if it is the year for Arsenal or any English side in the European trophies this season. Thank you three for joining me, and thank you all for joining us and watching this, our first live podcast on Mundo Sporto. Remember to check us out on the podcast apps if you want to see any of the previous Mundo Sporto podcasts. But thank you three for joining me. I hope you've all enjoyed it, and we shall see you very soon. Ta-ra.
Thanks a lot.